the Ministry of Culture keep the big shows. One set of girls and banner. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. They hide the corruption inside the cup, look how we evil set up. The people fed up. Every picture you take and promise you make, everything you do is about clouds. Then you come into me for I shake your hand, there's nothing to smile about. Corruption inside every sector, but when it comes to them they send you. Try investigate efficiency, right? Go talk to Barrett and Sue. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup, look how evil set up. The people fed up. I done fed up on the dirty water, low pressure, want scream and tell somebody. Imagine 1500 US and they're telling me super salary. I done fed up.
All right, it's just everybody's fed up, fed up, fed up. That's the going thing in Guyana. You go to the market, people are fed up. You go to the church, people are praying and they're saying how they're fed up. Corruption all across the country, discrimination, political discrimination, racial discrimination, all across the country. And it seems that they have quite a few bullies who walk into people's communities, walk into people's neighborhoods, and they take away people's lands. They do all sort of things. They have some of these corrupt individuals who are disguised, pretending as though they look like you. They are part of your community, but they are selling out your community to the wicked demonic forces in the government. That is exactly what is happening. The people of Mocha Arcadia are having serious discrimination problems, and they want to have that addressed because the PPPC, they're going in there and they're taking all of the people's lands. As you know what they have done, they bulldozed the people, they broke down the people's businesses, took away their lands, robbed them of hundreds of millions of dollars, and they just don't care. But as of now, they're distributing the lands to their friends and their cronies. So this is what Jack they have said, or the PPP. This is what they said recently, and they describe themselves as a government, right? They said government warns NDCs, RDCs not to sell or lease state lands. And this is what they are doing. They have been doing this for quite a while. But because, and this is what they're saying, following reports of illegalities at Mocha Arcadia. This afternoon with us is the Shadow Minister of Sports, but of course, Member of Parliament, Nima Flubes. She has responsibility for that area, Mocha Arcadia area, and she has been putting up a fight against the corrupt PPP regime on behalf of the people of Mocha Arcadia. This afternoon, we are joined by Nima Flubes, and she's going to explain to you guys what's happening as it pertains to the level of corruption and discrimination at the hands of the PPPC. Good afternoon, MP. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm well, thankful for life and an opportunity to stand yet again to fight for the people.
Yes, and we're thankful that you took time out of your schedule. This is a last minute something, and you quickly said yes, you're willing to come and explain what's happening. And this headline in today's Stabrook News says, government warns NDC, which is the National Democratic Councillors, and the RDC regional, not to sell or lease state lands. And they're pointing fingers right in Mocha Arcadia, and they're claiming that following reports of illegalities. Talk to us, please, Madam MP.
Thank you, Mark. First of all, let the viewers be aware that this area that the government is referring to and probably want to label as state lands are our ancestral lands in Arcadia Plantation. This plot of land, this area, comes under the NDC of Mocha Arcadia. We have responsibility to overlook there. When I was the vice chair for Mocha Arcadia NDC before becoming a sitting member of parliament, we would have visited that area. I have the list of the residents who were at that time in that area. It was just about 30 persons. But now I see this article with 300 persons living in the area. Now the question is, where did this 270 odd person came from the time the PPP took office? The NDC would have written to the ministry concerning assistance to regularize the said area. That is pushing infrastructure work like the roads and so forth. Also, the time the NDC would have collected letters for persons who are residents of this community and would have applied for land at housing and were not allocated lands. Our intention, and the intention still is, to have those persons occupy that area. But we have this government who feels that they have a right to walk into the Mocha Arcadia community or communities that where Africans predominantly live and take away the lands. Would they do that to Herstelling? Would they do that to Enmore? Just walk in and put people on the lands? They wouldn't do that. But because it is the Mocha Arcadia NDC, it is an African dominated, populated community. They have decided that they will walk in to do as they please. And they have not been communicating with the NDC that have been writing to them over and over for assistance. That is something we need people to understand. Even as the NDC would have written to them on more than one occasion, we have records, we have photos, we have videos, we have information of ministers of government coming here without even communicating with the NDC and conducting meetings with these people who would have moved in to squat on these said lands. Is that fair? Is that practice acceptable? It is unacceptable. You're telling people with one side of your mouth, the government, that squatting is illegal. But after telling people on one side of the mouth that squatting is illegal, you are bringing in squatters to go on the lands that belong to the people.
So wait a minute. And for those of you who are now joining us, thank you, Madam MP. Nima Flubes is with us. She has responsibility for sports, youth, sports, and culture. But today we're dealing with the Mocha Arcadia. As you know, she has been there. She has been standing up. She has taken the lead in that area, standing up for the people in Mocha Arcadia. And for those of you who just joined us, yes, this is a live program. It's 11 minutes after 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on this Sunday afternoon. You did say something, Madam MP, that the PPP regime is encouraging people to go into Mocha Arcadia and squat on those lands right now?
Yes, they are.
Well, continue.
They have their rep at the back there who's actually selling the land to people to come. But yes, they were written to, evidence was produced from the NDC to them. No steps were taken. Now, when the people of Mocha Arcadia decided we will stand up, we are seeing all the statements and all the things that they have to say. But we will fight them. I believe that I will do a personal ad in the paper with the plantation number. The plantation number, we cannot access the transport. They tell the people at the archive not to give us the original transport. We can't see it. It's sealed. But you're writing an article in the newspaper to say that this thing is under NISAIL still. How come Mocha lands, Mocha Arcadia ancestral lands, is under the control of NISAIL? What nonsense are they telling people? I will publish the list of names of persons who were occupying that area when the NDC went in there first. And then the government could tell us where the 270 people come from. These are things that we have to put out in public so people can understand. The government is being a bully. And we will not tolerate it.
And I'm glad that you guys are not going to tolerate that at all. According to information, the corrupt PPP regime, they're heading in there in Mocha Arcadia to talk to people around 4 o'clock. What exactly are they going to talk to people about?
Well, Mark, yesterday morning, about 200 residents went to the area And after they went there, the PPP persons turn up and they probably recognize that you can't come and overpower 200 people to say anything. So they quietly left, went and started propaganda as usual. They went and put out statement as usual, and they carry on. Mocha Arcadia have young adults who don't have lands. Mocha Arcadia have young people who would have applied to housing, families that would have applied to housing for over 14 years and still cannot be allocated a land. Any land distribution in Mocha Arcadia should go to those people. They should be given first preference. They live in the community. Why is it that you bringing people from all over and putting them on the land? That is unacceptable. I'm going to keep repeating it. The practice of the PPP is carried out right now on Mocha Arcadia. It is unacceptable. Hence, they have planned a meeting with, I think one of the ministers coming to keep a meeting with the same squatters at the back there. And like I said, they print quite a lot in the media. And I publicly answer them. One, you're just saying that this is illegal. Show the public. I want to challenge them. Let them show the public all the correspondence that Ministry of Housing or Ministry of Local Government would have sent to the NDC in regards to these lands. They should also publish the letters that the NDC of Mocha Arcadia would have written to them with the responses that they would have sent. They're being one-sided. They're not being fair. And as usual in the PPP style, a pack of liars just sitting there and carrying out the ones like if this is a plantation time. I'm going to say it again. My ancestors died for those lands. And that's how we're able to inherit it. And I will not sit. Nima Flubes will not sit and allow any government to come into my community. I'm a resident of Mocha Arcadia community and come and invade our lands like that. No, it's unacceptable.
Unacceptable indeed. If you're now joining us, the Honorable Member of Parliament, Nima Flubes, is standing up and representing the people of Mocha Arcadia. They seem to be on the verge of being bullied by the corrupt PPP regime. We have information to the effect that there are allegations, mind you, that there's one a counselor for the Mocha Arcadia local authority, a counselor by the name of Miss Bob is allegedly part of this scheme. Allegedly, let me just say, and if she's watching, she has right for equal time. We would grant her that. But we have a receipt here, information that some of these PPP counselors are selling house lots. Allegations?
Let me correct that. She was running for local government elections to be a council, but she didn't get the seat. So she is not a councillor.
Thank you.
She is a squatter at the back there. And she is the mouthpiece for the PPP. She's the person conducting all the transactions for the PPP. And that's what I want people to understand. This individual, as I would have shared with you, only recently was awarded contracts by the government, So that should tell you something else. She was awarded contract by the government.
What authority she has to do all of these based on the allegations? What authority? Who's giving her the power?
She don't have any authority. She does not have any authority. Her authority comes from the government directly. Her links to the government. That is where her authority comes from. She's not a sitting councillor. Mocha Arcadia have 12 councillors. One of the councillors is a PPPC councillor. All the rest is APNU councillors.
Then not so long ago, which was October 11th, there's evidence that she publicly stated that she is proud and excited to announce that she has been awarded a government contract. This achievement is not just personal. So yes, the evidence is there that she is definitely, she's boasting and bragging that she was awarded a contract. What sort of contract has she been awarded and to do what, please?
I have no idea, but based on my information, I think it's some road project or something they were awarded contract to do. But I'm not sure. I can't verify that. But that is the problem we have. Then, because she's affiliated to the government, she feels that she has the right and the power to do what she's doing. I know persons who follow my page would have seen me spoken about someone attacking me when I went to do my parliamentary work. That's a said individual. That's a said individual.
Specifically, Madam MP, what is this meeting all about today? And I do hope, let me say hi to the folks at Mocha Arcadia and the surrounding community. We must commend you guys for standing up and being as strong to resist the PPP and their corruption. And I hope you guys do not encourage any member of the PPPC to go there and bully you guys today. If possible, chase them. So specifically, Madam MP, what is the purpose of today's meeting there at 4 o'clock by the PPP?
Based on information we've received, this is a planning meeting. I don't know if the minister is going to give the people all assurance that they have a right to occupy and to squat on our ancestral lands and not go through our NDC. The Mocha Arcadia is an elected body, an elected council. Anything pertaining to our community should pass through the council. I do not care which minister feel that they're more important than the whoever they feel they're important more than. When we're talking about a democratic country, there are reasons why we have system. If you want proper governance to take place, you have to engage with the local body on the ground. Instead of doing that, you're going to give people power. Give people power to invade our lands. We won't accept it. The NDC has allocated, highlighted that they would use some of that land for commercial use. We need to increase our tax income and so in Mocha Arcadia. These people decided that they're going to even occupy that set of land. They're going to move in. And then they're putting out false information, how people break down people's house, people live there for how many years. And like I said, Mark, we have a record. We have a record. The NDC got a record, and I got a record when I was former vice chair for Mocha Arcadia, the NDC, on the number of persons that occupied that area. And we will make it public. And we will ask the government, I wanted to know that they will be listening to this program, so I'm going to ask them, make the plan available to the public, to the Mocha Arcadia NDC, so we can all clarify how Mocha ancestral land is underneath sale. Let them make it public.
That's the thing, because they've been going around the country, huffing, so to speak, taking away ancestral lands and giving it to their friends and their cronies. And this is the person, some Bob, is claiming to have received a government contract, and that's a big achievement, according to her. We also have information, according to the information here, she was a candidate, as you indicated, and thank you for that correction, that she is behaving, some residents are saying, not my words, that she is behaving like a PPP bully in the area. Again, so much spunks.
Yep. That's the spunks they have. And you would recognize that it's something that is becoming rampant. When people affiliated to the government, they feel that they have the right to attack, they have the right to affect people, and that is unacceptable. People must respect each other. Not because you got affiliation to the government, you feel that you could talk to people anyhow, you could run into people's communities and take away their lands. It is unacceptable. Mark, you know, one of the things I want to point out. You see the set thing that they're trying to do at the back of Mocha Arcadia is the set thing they did to Sierra Joanna. When you speak to the Sierra Joanna residents, they will tell you the government encouraged them to squat on the land and said when they get into government, they will regularize the area. When they got into government, they regularized a few of the people, residents there, and the rest, they left them on their own. And suddenly, one man became the owner for a whole large area in Sierra Joanna, that at present, 120 children will be made homeless because the parents, they're breaking down the homes and they ain't award house lot to them as yet. And it's the same thing they will do to the people here that they're encouraging to squat.
Absolutely. An illegal government does that. It's not a government of the people, it's a government against the people. And that describes the PPPC. But the question is, and I'm sure it's probably going through the minds of some of our listeners, is what exactly are the residents of Mocha doing to stand up against this sort of bullyism and discriminatory practices by the PPP regime?
If the PPP are going to bring people to give them our lands, we will occupy the lands. Just like how you could bring people from outside to occupy the lands, the Mocha Arcadia residents shall occupy the lands too. That's all that will happen. If you feel that you could bring in people to take over, we will go there and occupy because it's our lands.
And certainly people can't fault you guys for doing that because it is ancestral lands and it is illegal. But isn't there a court matter, some sort of motion to block the PPP from doing what they're doing to you guys in Mocha Arcadia?
Mark, the NDC is working on that because we have to fight them every possible way. We will fight them. And if it has to be in the court, so be it. But we want the information out in the public. So nobody ain't gonna run up to say that they know, like the propaganda they put out. NDC, things being facilitated by NDC members and opposition figures. The caption they should have put, facilitated by PPP operatives. I don't know who in the opposition facilitating nothing. I'm a resident of Mocha Arcadia community, and I have a right to stand up for what is mine. I'm a resident of this village, and I have to stand up and speak out.
Can't blame you for standing up and speaking out. I'm looking at some of your comments there. This is sort of resilience that we do need to stand up and fight against the corrupt PPP regime. Madam MP, I want you to kindly explain to our listeners, because you guys are on the right track. You guys are doing what is right. And I applaud you guys for that. You wrote, a letter was written to the minister, Colin Crowell, concerning response to correspondences. So you guys have been reaching out to talk to, for them to explain what's going on. And they have thus far ignored every one of the letters sent.
Yes, they have ignored every one of the letters. I will get the rest of the letters and make them public so that people will see that the NDC have been writing to these people, these ministers that don't communicate, they don't respond, they don't even acknowledge receipt of your letters when your correspondence when you send it. And then you're talking about democratic country and you're for all people. This government is not for all people. They're not for all people. Because if they were, they would have been answering the correspondence that is sent to the ministry and reply rightfully to the NDC. But they're ignoring the NDC. They call meetings in here, they don't inform the NDC. They come in, they run and reach people quietly, then I informing the NDC. Project here, something to do. Nobody informing the NDC. The NDC, again, I want to repeat publicly, is the legal authority of this village. We went to election and we vote for a council. Our council is there to represent the interests of our village, and every one of our sitting councillors got brains. They can read, they can think. So the government don't have to say that it's people that they can't work with. It's people who are logical, they're thinking, and they don't want to work with that. That is a disrespect we're dealing with the PPPC government. And then because they got all these print media, they're running to push out things. But like I said, I'm going to make it my responsibility to send all of these things to the print media if I have to pay for the page. And even send the map of Arcadia for them to put in the press so that people can see what it is that the PPPC government is doing. They will never take such a step in Enmore, in our Stelling, or any one of those villages. Will leave those people land. But because Mocha Arcadia is predominantly African community, they're insisting on affecting our ancestral land. So we're not going to accept it.
And people are saying yes, good. They like the energy, and thank you so much, Nima Flubes, the Honorable Member of Parliament in Guyana. I see some questions here, and let me take time out to acknowledge the presence of the Deputy Mayor of Linden on with us, Mr. Dominic Blair, and others. All of you, wherever you are, thank you. But we are not yet leaving. Let me just say that after we are finished with Ms. Nima Flubes, Member of Parliament, we'll go straight to Linden, and we'll have a few minutes with the His Worship the Mayor of Linden to give us an update as to what's happening there. I noticed Mr. Vince Adams, Dr. Adams is asking whether the 4 p.m. engagement by the PPP regime in Mocha Arcadia, whether it will be broadcast live. Once we have access to that broadcast by the people, I'm hoping that those people will go and chase those so-called ministers out. We will broadcast it live right here on 107.1 FM. Madam MP, we know that you're upset. I wouldn't say, and rightly so. You have every reason to be upset. We can just imagine what the residents of Mocha Arcadia are experiencing. Do they feel that their back is against a wall and there's no sort of justice their way thus far?
No, we don't feel that our backs is against the wall. We will go through every possible avenue to ensure that this particular matter is raised at every level, the international level, all the agency we can raise it with here, everything possible that we can do, we will do. When we finish doing that, then we can know if we're back against the wall. But we're backing and go against the wall. We can find the energy. We can find the fighting spirit of our ancestors and stand up to this demonic government. We will do that. It is quite unfair. I'm very upset because of the barefaced nature of the PPP people. I'm very upset with them. They mean to done. They just mean to continue like bloodsuckers. They don't want people to thrive in the country. We all have to thrive. We're Guyanese. We are Guyanese. And the people in Mocha deserve the lands. Our land shouldn't be given to other people. We got people in here, young people, who need the lands to build their homes. We got young people who apply to housing and they still ain't get no allocation of lands. And those are the things that we have to fight for. We cannot sit and allow them to come and bring other people to occupy the land. And our people are left without. No, unacceptable. Unacceptable.
Certainly, Ms. Nima Flubes, unacceptable indeed. So whatever has the people are planning there for this afternoon, again, it's brainwashing those people because your request, your correspondences through the district there has been turned on a blind eye by the PPP regime. Again, you said that you guys feel disrespected. What about the residents? Do they see that the PPP regime doesn't really have their best interest at heart? How are they feeling?
Yes, our residents are very much aware of that. They're very much aware that these people are disrespectful. Our elders in here, y'all remember when Irfan Ali came to this village and disrespected our chairman? And that is something that we hold here. And I feel every minister feel that they have a contract to come into Mocha to disrespect our elected officials. It's unacceptable. You don't walk into people's house and go and rearrange people's house and do what you feel like without permission. And we're not going to accept it here. If the few PPP people in the village who want to accept disrespect, that's their business. The majority of this village will not accept disrespect from the PPP. And so we will stand up to them. We have to stand up to them. I want Guyanese to know we have to stand up to them. We cannot continue to sit down and not say anything. We have to let the world know what is happening. This is an undemocratic government. And before I come off this show, I'm calling again the government. Y'all make the plan available, the 1891 plan available to y'all hiding. Make it public and let us see how Mocha Arcadia ancestral land end up underneath sale. I want them to do that. I'm challenging them to do that. Make the plan public. Let us access the plan and let the public see it.
One of the things, and I'm glad that there are folks out there with evidence, but what the PPP regime has done over the years is they go into these villages where their ancestral lands and they destroy the evidence in order to make it appear that there is no evidence. That is how dishonest the PPP regime is. because we know that that particular area, it is ancestral land. They know that, but they just want to be bullies. We applaud you, Honorable MP, and those others who are standing up and say to the PPP, no way, it is not going to happen. Is there anything else? I know we're looking at the time. I took you out of an engagement, and plus there's another engagement in your village. Is there anything else you wish to inform our listeners about before you go, ma'am?
I would say to our listeners, we have to stand up and fight. It's not just the MPs in Parliament. If every person add their voice to the marginalization, the wicked practice that is being done by this PPPC government, we will be heard and we will get rid of them in the next election, because we recognize they don't really care about people. They do not care about Guyanese and what is happening. I thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Honorable MP. Let's stay in touch. If the people are going to be out there to chase, and those are my words, to chase the PPP folks out of the area, we will carry it live right here on 107.1 FM. But just before you go, and we have the Mayor of Linden, His Worship Sharma Solomon, with us, let me just remind the people that this chasing them out of villages and communities is something that the PPP has always recommended. So we're just using their recommendations now.
Right across Ghana, when the ministers of Granger or Nagamutu come here after the 21st of March, you say to them, walk behind them, chase them out, they're going to be illegal. Say to them, you're illegal.
Exactly. Walk behind them this afternoon in Mocha Arcadia. Chase them out. Chase them out. Honorable MP, thank you so much for your time, ma'am.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye.
All right. Let's move from Mocha Arcadia and head straight to Linden, another form of blatant discrimination by the PPP regime. We have His Worship the Mayor, Sharma Solomon. Mr. Mayor, good afternoon. How are you?
Hi, blessed good afternoon, Mark, and good afternoon to your Sunday audience. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, thank you so much. Can't complain. Let's get straight down into business here. According to information that is, we're hearing that, we're moving away from the cash grant stuff now. That's not the question. But we're hearing Jack Davis saying that Bamia School is ready, up and ready to rock and roll. We saw a contradiction there by the chairman of Region 10, Mr. Derham Adams. What's your take on Jack Davis' blatant dishonesty that the school is ready when we're hearing that it's not?
Thanks again, Mark. And I like that you're highlighting some of these matters. I think it is important that the Vice President, when asked about this matter, that he would have brought the attention of what now becomes a new dimension of this conversation of completion. And I think that is where now, not only at the municipality and myself as the councillor in the Amelia's Ward Bamia constituency, but for all those journalists and all the public who he would have made that claim to come to ascertain for themselves. I think many times people believe we politicize these issues. So I think at the moment, the claim and the new dimension of this Bamia Primary School have now taken the direction given by the Vice President. And I believe that now becomes where the regional chairman, I know I've not had a chance to see the article, but I think in any contradiction, it now becomes in reference to that new position that the school is completed. And it should not get from only the regional chairman and myself, but I think from the general public, those parents who are so anxiously awaiting the completion, the community itself, and also for those journalists who ask the question, to know if that is indeed so, which is now on the table, that it is completed, which myself and councillors, we will to take that challenge of seeing if that is indeed so, that new dimension of its completion.
Yep, and that's called swift reaction there by you guys in Linden. Particularly, let me just say, thanks to that swift comeback there by the regional chairman. I hope that somebody may just go live wherever the school is, and Bamia Primary School that Jackie is claiming that it has been completed. You guys are there in Linden to say that that's not the case, so that we can see the evidence. If it's been completed, well, it's about time. It's over almost 3 years now, and hundreds of millions of dollars spent, and hundreds of young people have been deprived for all those years. But it's just the dishonesty on the part of the PPP regime. Mr. Mayor, I know that the township of Linden, lots and lots of discrimination, people whose properties, homes have been flooded. There has been no compensation by the PPP regime, other than just maybe some sweet smell or JS fluid or whatever you call it. No compensation. But you guys have a health crisis there too. Can you talk to us a little bit about what's happening?
Thanks again, Mark. The issue of flooding remains a serious concern for the community, for residents. I know over the past several months, dating back beyond the May period, we had 4 floods of significant totals amounting to almost $200 million in damages of assessments that were done between the periods of those floods. Now, individuals repeatedly suffered because of, over the period of drainage systems and structures put down in the community that we are now recognizing are, if not inadequate, that they were poorly designed to deal with the issue of water management within the community of Linden. And let us not forget, Linden is a hilly sand and clay community where elevations sometimes go as much as 200 feet. So in that sort of condition, or those conditions, the council and the people of the communities made it quite clear to the government that this is an emergency of its magnitude, and as such, requires an emergency intervention to ensure that we fix those deficiencies that caused the flooding to begin with. Our concern would be the rate of implementation. It is the Prime Minister and the Minister of Public Works in between those periods that came up and said, you know what, we're going to do what needs to be done. Let us not forget, Mark, the council had asked quite a few times for intervention to ensure that we take a short, medium, and long-term approach to fixing the issue of flooding. The government, instead of listening to the council, came in with their own intervention, compliments to the Prime Minister and Minister Ejel. And instead of working with the council, worked with the clerk, the town clerk, and the REO, where resources were directed directly through them. And we had, notwithstanding those interventions, continuous flooding. What we have said to the government in this emergency behavior is that they need to ensure the infrastructure that are deficient are remedied with urgency. That, to date, is not done, Mark. That was not done. We have also said to the government that outside of the urgent response for those infrastructural works to be remedied, which deserve the emergency intervention, that we also want to take a medium-term approach, which the council have already started to initiate, which is to have a consultant to come in and to do a more detailed analysis of the drainage network, the flow structure, and how do we design maps so as to guide engineers and contractors when they come into the region to design these drainage structures. And a more long-term approach of how we deal with climate change and where we see more intense weather patterns. So those are the things the council would have recommended to the government. To date, not a single one would have been given the sort of consideration in terms of emergency response. The second thing, Mark, would be the destruction caused by those floods and the response to the social side of the suffering of the community. It is very disheartening to know that the government only response would have been a few zinc sheets to people who suffered and not recognizing the over $200 million in damages to 7 communities. where people are now having to put back their lives. We have expected, if not what you call an intervention of a grant, those sorts of things are provided for. Grants are provided in the interest of farmers when they're flooded and are in need of state support. This is an emergency. We have already aggregated exactly the amount of losses, and those are the responses should have been made. So on those two levels of the flooding, on the infrastructural side, it's inadequate, and on the social side for the suffering of the people, far more should and must be done. And we'll come to the road as we proceed, Mark. But that is on the issue of the flooding.
Thank you so much for that. On the issue of the flooding, evidence of discrimination, the people of Linden by the corrupt PPP regime. Before we go to the roads briefly, let me just say hi to the folks in Mocha Arcadia. And for those of you who are watching as well, from wherever you are, let's pray for the people of Mocha Arcadia. They're being bullied by the corrupt PPP regime. And that can be said to people about people throughout the country. We're hearing His Worship, the Mayor of Linden, talking about discrimination there and what the PPP is doing to the people in Linden, punishing the people in Linden. And not just in Linden, out in other areas such as Ituni, Kokwani, Old England, and other areas. Before we get to the roads, though, Mr. Mayor, can you give us an update on the disrespect by the guy who sits there as the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Utah, who himself is a Lindener? He recently visited the area, and according to information, he was extremely disrespectful. Can you touch on that, please?
Again, another issue that we would hope that it is dealt with in a more professional and cordial approach in terms of especially this very sensitive issue of the migrants in Linden and throughout Guyana. Let us not forget, Mark, it was January when Minister Ben said we had no migrants in Linden. And over the past week or weeks gone by, it is the foreign minister who is in Linden speaking about settling migrants into Linden, speaking about migrants who are gainfully employed in Linden, and even moving to the point of disrespecting the community to justify what the government said never existed, which was a migrant issue in the community, when persons are questioning the approach that government is taking, which is not to have the leadership of the community and the community in the wider context involved in what is happening when we were told we never had such an issue to begin with. It is most unsettling when you have the senior diplomat of the nation representing the face of Guyana acting in such an undiplomatic behavior when you have him responding to say that we in Linden are accustomed to squatting. That is how we were built. And as such, we should have no problems with people coming to occupy squatting land. I think I would correct and educate the minister for a moment that Linden is one of the developed communities that was built on the strength of self-help. And several such schemes are there to demonstrate where the principle of ensuring people have decent and dignified housing in this township. The minister further went on to speak about the attitude of work as it relates to the Venezuelans and the Lindeners. And this is why I find it a bit troubling that the minister came from his office to the fields, a diplomat, to conduct this exercise and to behave so off chain and off guard, to behave in such an undiplomatic manner, to justify the migrant situation. Further to say why we were lazy, because migrants are being paid $3,000, where minimum wage and where a laborer is paid about $6,000. The minister is saying that Lindeners in essence don't want to work and are lazy. Well, I think when we get back to the BAMU school, and for those who are investigating and see who were really working on that school and how they were paid, you'll understand the issues that emerge when we talk about that. But back to the minister. To even say that as a Lindener himself demonstrates that he is out of touch with the reality of the industrious behavior of the people of Linden in building this nation and ensuring that this country, Guyana, through the behavior of the bauxite industry for over 112 years, not only give, but continue to give the most talented artisans in this country all the mining operations and big operations, including Exxon Mobil, technical competency. We have tamed the jungles of Guyana. You go to Goldfield, you go to Omai, you go where Baishaling was, you go to the many cooperations, Lindeners are there, and the minister there say, we are lazy. To the extent that not only went on to say that about our attitude of work, and to say further that we ourselves as a community are ungrateful. This community is the most hospitable community. What we are saying to the minister is that their protocols, their conventions, and it's a bit surprising that this is our foreign minister and doesn't understand in treating displaced people that those protocols must be applied, such as the International Organization on Migration, such as our Human Rights Organization and Convention. We in Linden understand that, and we are prepared to adapt those and work with the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to ensure that not only we indeed perform our international obligations and responsibilities, but at the same time address the concerns legitimately of our Lindeners. When you have people who have been bulldozed from those same lands in Amelia's ward, and people are seeing migrants living on those lands, it sets a social imbalance if the ministry is not careful. It is the people and the leadership in the tongue who will have to deal with those consequences. And that is why I find the minister behavior a bit irresponsible. But let me just add one more mark.
Sure.
The minister for 15 minutes went on the report. You read the Stabroek News article where the reporter said it was Minister Mackay who had to pull the minister away to ask him to behave himself in Parliament while he was abusing the female reporter from Stabroek News. To say to her that we should not have been on the second page stating this story because it makes him look bad internationally. That is the only thing the minister was concerned about.
It's ironic that someone, a convict criminal like Kwame McCoy would, who has done 10 times worse than what this guy Todd has done to the people of Linden, disrespected the people of Linden. The people of Linden should never again accept Todd unless he apologizes. He needs to apologize. Unfortunately, he hasn't gotten to that point as yet to call Lindeners lazy people, all because they are standing up and they're pushing back against corrupt and discriminatory practices by the PPP regime. You correctly pointed out that it is Linden who carried the weight of all of Guyana when the PPP regime were encouraging the folks within Gaisuku to burn the cane fields and destroy the country. It was people who have worked hard enough, who have made sacrifices. Many of our folks went from the quarantine to Linden, the bauxite industry, because had it not been for the bauxite industry, the PPP would have won Guyana to cripple. Because while the bauxite industry was grinding and people were working and making sacrifices to lift the country up and to ensure that the country was able to breathe, the PPP were busy burning and encouraging people to burn cane fields across the country. So the UTOD needs to do some sort of research. He needs to read. He needs to understand the history. And I say kudos to all the people of Linden. they should stand up and call on Utah to apologize. If not, the next time he goes to Linden, chase him out. We're looking at the time, Mr. Mayor. Is there anything else you wish to speak on? I know what's happening with the road, the sort of pollution that's there, poisoning the air.
Right. Thanks again, Mark. The road remains concern to the community, and I find again most reckless the behavior and the attitude towards a legitimate concern of the Nikedak Road. And it is being masked under the pretext that persons are anti-development because it hinders the bridge. Now, because of the behavior in dealing with what should have been dealt with earlier, the road was maintained in a manner that left it as a fair weather road, rather than treating it that one will become a major road and a main road. This is no longer an access road. You close off Casarini Drive, you close off a main road that takes people into constituency 4, takes people into the main hospital of the Mackenzie Hospital, Watuka Club, Watuka Nursery School, Watuka Primary School, several churches, all the way to the Kamaka Mines, even Aichuni Kukwani. Every resident heading in those directions will now have to use that road. The call was made then that now that this road is going to be a main road, you cannot leave it as a trail road or a fair weather road. You have to upgrade it because it's now going to have 1,000 times more use, transportation, and vehicle. That was not done. Added to that, coming to council's attention from Councillor Bethune, who works at BOSAI and who is responsible for many sampling around the community because of the past bauxite mining history, did samplings that show that some of the materials being used to maintain the road over the past 2.5 years came from areas that have contaminated materials. And those contractors hired by the Ministry of Public Works to begin with were maintaining the road with that material. Coming to light with that information, we said to the minister, even with the show of samples, that they should close the road and cap it. Cap it so it takes care of both of those concerns, the state of the road and what materials may have been used on the road that samples show have toxic elements. The minister said for some reason, supported by a room full of activists who should be more concerned about the community, that the road is not going to stop because they're going to use water suppression, in fact, dust suppression mechanism, which was to put water on the road. I think Dr. Adams, who is the former head of the EPA, made one of the most sane call, and I think the minister should, if he is so confident in what the EPA did, because he is claiming tests were done, to release those tests and to demonstrate how those tests were conducted. Because based on what Dr. Adams is saying, the EPA does not have the capacity to conduct several of the exercises that are demanding of their attention at the moment, including the toxic road of Nikedak. So I think right now, coming from yesterday and today's position of Dr. Adams, the municipality is going to ask formally for that sampling that was done by the EPA, and also added to that to demonstrate how the sampling was done. But let me go one more mark. What this does, it opens up the conversation that Linden, a community that is with many old mining deposit location, where rare earth elements were deposited like at the back of aluminum plant, it requires the EPA to do a wider test, because not only for those contractors who are moving those materials and depositing them for construction purposes and people putting them in their yards, but people are also going in those locations and live. So it requires an even wider investigation of some of what is available in the community and what the EPA should be responding to. And I think the approach being taken by the minister, and even to wider extent, EPA is a bit callous and doesn't take into consideration the seriousness of the claims being made, especially when samples were presented.
We have noticed that it's a pattern of the PPP. They just don't like samples, and you've spoken samples there. Gosh, a sad situation that even the voice recorder box for the helicopter crash went overseas, and they seem to be tampering with that, the results as well. And so I mentioned that not as that it's relevance, but the fact that they just are not forthcoming. They're not straight up with members of the public, and so they should reveal, as you have called on them to do, the sampling. We have the crane situation as well. Lots of folks within the crane area complaining. EPA went in there and just didn't do any proper research into what is happening there. Nothing at all. And the people of Crane Village, if you're watching, we understand what you're going through, and we just hope that at some point in time we'll have a real government that will stand up for its people, unlike this corrupt PPP regime. Let me say good afternoon to all of you, wherever you are. Chesil, Chill Pepper, Cruz, and KGM, all of you, Neville, Sital, Handel Ford, Claudette, Sealy, all of you. I don't know, Mr. Sharma, but quickly before we go, cost of living is really high throughout the country. People on the quarantine are complaining. People in Georgetown, people on the West Bank, on the East Bank, people all across the country are complaining. And Guyana is supposed to be, a $1 billion economy, the fastest growing economy in the world, but yet people are punishing. What's the situation, please, sir, with the folks in Linden?
The issue of cost of living, I heard recently that the interventions made should be able to nullify the arguments that are being made about cost of living. And I'm trying to figure out how did we arrive at that based on these interventions. And I think for me, when we walk the communities of Linden, you hear quite different from people who are on the front lines, the homeowners, the households, the housewives, the unemployed youth, the pensioner, the person who is still working below minimum wage in the private sector, the conditions that you see of collapsing infrastructure, the increase in cost of transportation, and even what a black bag of supplies look like. I think when you hear those contradictions on the ground and you see them, the reality of how they're impacting Guyanese, then it's difficult to conclude on the argument that the interventions being made are adequate enough. And I think most of the times it is because we are drawing them on the basis of a qualitative approach of this is going to work. How do we know that? And recently, and I think you recognize publicly, we have made this call, and we are making this call that we did last year as a brand new council, because we cannot make policies of intervention without understanding in a qualitative and a quantitative way, the numbers of what is actually happening in those households. How many people are actually employed in this community? How it is that people are getting by on the issue of cost of living? Because some of the policies that the council may want to work on, such as maybe an environmental levy, and look at taxes in terms of how we do our amnesty, those are the sort of things and intervention that we are unable to make in a very quantitative way because we don't have the numbers to justify that. So what we did last year, we asked the government to release for us the 2012 census, which was partly released, the preliminary. even though they were working on the 2022 census. Last year, we asked 2023. However, we have not gotten that. And we believe in every community, for councils, for policymakers, for regulators, for people who are going to be putting investment into the community, they must have a proper understanding of how they're going to do that. So the council is proceeding to have its own data collection that allows it to assess what is happening in households. We want to know how persons are with their employment status, so that if you're going to give, even if it's 100,000 a man or 200,000 a household, we must be able to say, because government would have not given us that information, if that is adequate based on the tax threshold, based on unemployment, based on minimum wage. We cannot do any of those things to have a real sane sense or measurement of those things that government are trying to intervene with, unless we have that information. So you ask about cost of living. For now, you go into the streets, you hear that contradiction of it's a killer. But let me say this, Mark. What we have found persons to be in a state of what it's a new culture, the eat a food culture. So you starve people to a point, to the extent that anything you intervene with, whether it's 100 or 200, it seems excessive to the point that it takes care of what their real needs are. While we live in a $2 billion a day economy, only from the oil and gas sector. I think that sort of culture is causing people not to see that these interventions are only for a certain period, and I think election is soon upon us.
His Worship the Mayor of Linden, Sharma Solomon, no stranger, also former chairman of Region 10. He is with us this afternoon. Took some time out of his busy schedule. I noticed you were busy out in the Blue Lake area. Kind of familiar with that area as a little boy growing up, but quickly before we go, what's the situation there?
Now, we had some persons who came into the community, and I want to thank Stacey Morrison for her dedication to promote Discover Guyana. And she brought in last year quite a few investors who came in to see what we have in Guyana, but they're always excited to come to Linden. So we had a good opportunity to show them the many investment opportunities in manufacturing, tourism, and agriculture, forestry, aggregates, even the skill that Linden would have that Mr. Todd think we don't. All those things we were able to show those persons. But I think what we show them today is on the last position we just discussed, on how we are trying to acquire the quantitative numbers to convince them as to where to place their investment in Linden, as we've demonstrated to them that Linden is the heart of Guyana.
Thank you so much. Linden is indeed the heart of Guyana. Hope you, Todd, who is from Linden, hope he's listening. Lots of people are describing him as a sellout, but we'll deal with that on some other occasion. Mr. Mayor, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Appreciate it.
Blessings, Mark.
Thank you, sir. And continue the good work out there in Linden. The Honorable, they say that His Worship the Mayor of Linden. Earlier, we had the Deputy Mayor of Linden watching us as well in the audience. If you're still there, thank you guys so much for all that you're doing out there in Linden, standing up against the corrupt PPP regime. You, Todd, ought to be ashamed of himself. Had it not been for Linden, he probably would not be who he is today or where he is today. And he can be described as an ungrateful vagabond, an ungrateful vagabond. You, Todd, if you're watching, you need to correct that as quickly as possible. I noticed there's a KGM corrected me that I said 1070 in the 1070s as opposed to 1970s. I'm sure people picked it up. We weren't around in 1070. There was no Linden in 1070. But thank you so much, nevertheless. I noticed Francine Cruz said that Jack Day is a failure and only wants to steal our money. We will deal with all those who wish to steal our monies. All right, Sital, Neville Sital, also known as Civic, is saying crapo. Right. You guys have lots of description for those folks. But let me just say that coming up at 4 o'clock, hopefully we'll carry a live feed. The people out there in Mocha Arcadia, as they stand up and chase the corrupt PPP regime, their officials who are going into Mocha with the sole intention of stealing the people's land. It's ancestral land, and we have to stand on the side of what is right. We have to stand on the side of the people of Mocha Arcadia, and we have to defend them by every, and I do mean it, we have to defend them by every legal means necessary. The PPP regime, just as they've done to the place over on where they now have this Qatari hotel. The Qatari hotel land is ancestral lands as well. They have already taken that. Jack Day, where he has his semi-mansion, Pradoville 2, that is said to be ancestral lands as well. So there's a pattern of the PPP regime going into predominantly African communities and taking away their lands, their ancestral lands. They steal the documents. They claim that there's no documents, there's nothing. And but yet they cannot produce, even though the PPP regime, through lands and surveys, would have destroyed the documents for these areas, including Mocha Arcadia and so forth, just because they are covetous. They do not want people to own lands. They want to control the things for themselves. But you guys got the message. Thank you so much, Member of Parliament Nima Flubes, who was on earlier. Thank you so much to His Worship, the Mayor of Linden, Sharma Solomon, who was on as well. But for now, I've got to go. If there's a live coverage with what's happening in Linden, in Mocha Arcadia, we will definitely carry it right here on 107.1 FM. Just to have you guys know that tomorrow this creature goes to court. Hopefully he will beg, as he normally does, beg not to go to jail, beg not to be remanded. And according to information, he should be walking up the court steps tomorrow morning. Tomorrow, Monday morning. And so as we go back to this guy here, the Jagdiel claims cash grant originality is PPP's misleading, is PPP's. Jagdiel's claims, okay, this is what the Village Voice is saying. Thank you so much, Village Voice, for this. And Village Voice is correct. You guys should go on the Village Voice to read this here. We shouldn't allow Jagdiel or any one of these PPP vagabonds to get away with their propaganda, because that is what they are all about. Propaganda, nothing, no proper policies, no vision for Guyana. All they do is propaganda. And there's nothing that is original about the PPPC regime, not even the reintroduction of tuition at the university level or even the vocational schools across the country, something they took away from the people over almost 30 years now. It has finally been restored. Thanks, because had it not been for the vision of the People's National Congress under Forbes Burnham, free education from nursery to university. All of these PACUs, most of them in the PPP regime, have benefited from free education from nursery to university. Some of them, not most of them, gone to nursery schools. I remember nursery school when I was in nursery school in the 70s. I was in nursery school in the 70s, and even primary school later on in the 70s, right? Giving you guys an idea as to how young I am. There was biscuit, there was milk, and you eat biscuit, you eat milk. I mean, even though you leave home, you get something, you get a roti and pumpkin or whatever, or bacon saltfish, and you go to nursery school, you still want more. You get biscuit, you get nice crimpling biscuit, that crispy biscuit, that nice milk, and so forth. All of us, the PNC Burnham's government never discriminated against anybody. We went to primary nursery school. I attended Ross Nursery School at Alness Village, and all of us were right there in the nursery school with a little lunch kit, and we go in there and I be sit down and I be eat and all sorts of things. We weren't looking around who was of what race or ethnicity, who belonged to PPP. We didn't know that. All of us were one people, one nation, one destiny. And that's the beauty. That's how healthy the environment was there, because young people were taken care of. And then even at the vocational school, Rosal Technical Institute, lots of kids, those who weren't interested in becoming lawyers and doctors and so forth, those who wanted to do other stuff. And with all due respect, not everybody wants to wear a tie. Not everybody wants to hold a cutlass or a hammer or a screwdriver and those sort of things. There are lots of talented young people back then who decided that they want to go to Rosal Technical Institute or New Amsterdam Technical Institute or Linden Technical Institute or right there in Georgetown or so forth. And it was free. All those kids made a turned tradesmen, and many of them are in the United States. They're working, compliments of Burnham's vision. But you cannot turn to the PPP and see any sort of vision or policy that they have that you can embrace other than the Moniga Mek. The only vision for the PPP and their only policy is Moniga Mek. So they come from this Moniga Mek, thieving people's lands, paying people to go and kill people, all manner of things under the PPP regime. So they're Moniga Mek. We got eat a food. That's the only policies. Under the PNC, Barnum and so forth, everybody ate. Everybody had a nice garden. They plant, and they used to cost rice flour. Now everybody running at the supermarket to buy rice flour and all these manner of things. All these things are happening or happened under the PNC government. And as we fast track now back under the coalition government, lots of good things happen, because under the coalition government, APNU, AFC, they had to repair the damages done. And there was a heck of a lot of damages done by the PPP regime. And God knows they should have still been in office, but they were cheated out of office. And this corrupt PPP vagabonds, a bunch of these vagabonds were installed. And this explains why we are where we are again. The people of Mocha are going through hardship because of this corrupt PPP regime. The people in Linden, people throughout the country, even at Port Morant, even the rice farmers, even the sugar workers are going through some hardships, lots and lots of hardships. And that is why it's important to not fall for the propaganda, the trickery, the bribery of the People's Progressive Party when they claim that they're giving you contracts. And the contracts have no meaning, no long-term meaning for you other than just a short-term effect, where the bulk of the monies that they give you, whether they give you $1 million, 3/4 of that or 95% of that going back to PPP, because they're going to tell you how to spend it, where to spend it, and you're going to have to keep going and asking them for a little 25,000, a little 100,000, so that you can go and get stuff done. That is just what they are about. So do not fall for their bribery. Do not fall for their propaganda. Do not fall for the corruption. Again, good afternoon to the people in Mocha Arcadia. If there is going to be a live coverage of you guys chasing those PPP vagabonds, so-called ministers and so forth, please let us know, and we will carry it live right here on 107.1 FM. My name is Mark Benchop. I'm out of here. I'll see you later on if there is a link to what's going to be happening in Mocha Arcadia just around 4 o'clock. I'm out of here. Thank you all so much. So long.
I can't take it no more. I can't take it no more. Can't take it no more. Imagine 18 hours of blackout and you're telling people progress. Cost of living gone up 100%, yet you give public servant less. Mr. President, listen to the people. Search your soul and you will confess. I want you try surviving on the public face, then you're gonna know but stress. Cause I done fed up, you done fed up, he done fed up, she done fed up, we done fed up, the people fed up. You're hiding corruption inside the cup, look how evil set up. The people fed up. They don't drive no fear with the citizen. They may want the people speak out. Freedom of speech done gone inside the gutter. Knock off when you open your mouth. Discrimination in entertainment, and you're talking about one Guyana. When the Ministry of Culture keep the